reporting on the games you love by people who love to game. The MMO Reporter Network. You're listening to Defiance Reporter on the MMO Reporter Network, brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download at audibletrial.com/MMO Reporter. And by Doghouse Systems. Choose your weapon with Doghouse Systems.
Greetings, Arc Hunter, and welcome for another episode of Defiance Reported. We are now on episode 37, discussing the viewing of episode 3, The Cork and the Axe. With me, I've got the wonderful Women of Defiance, Michelle. How you doing?
Hi.
I understand you went through a bunch of trauma this weekend.
I did. I had to relive it not only on Thursday, but then to recap it, and now I'm recapping it again. So needless to say, I don't even know how many bottles of wine I've had to go through. And I've destroyed all my Portishead CDs. I burned them in the backyard.
Yeah, I noticed a few times, even before the episode aired, in preparation for episode 3, a lot of the celebrities, the actors of the show, were tweeting about how dark it was, and our drinking game continued on.
Yeah, it just continues. It doesn't matter the time nor the day. You could be at work at 10 a.m., and all of a sudden, Datak and Tony Curran is talking about how dark it is.
Drink!
It was Tony and Jesse that were really starting to lay it on thick. That kind of had me a little, piqued my radar. I was like, oh, okay, maybe this actually will be an intense show. And they did not disappoint.
Maybe they just follow you and know what you're doing.
Yeah, they basically just want me to lose my job, basically.
So anyway, let's go ahead and talk about episode 3, The Cord and the Axe, with a short recap first.
So, apparently, this is a perfect way to start an episode. We've seen this prostitute before, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we have.
I knew we had. I knew I was familiar with her, but she is now the new DJ for Tartrax Records. She's spinning, because I guess Alak is putting more of his time into other things. But anyway, the whole point of that scene was that Alak is really trying to overcome the cultural norms of a Castithan male, and he's really struggling to stay loyal to Christy.
And at the same time trying to fight the fact that he's not as much a man as his father. So he's fighting two different battles to two different ends at the same time. Exactly,
which is why he really did start to make out with her. He was going to show her who was boss, and then, her idea of foreplay is to mention the murder that he just committed last week, so that kind of stalled things a bit. But that's interesting because, yeah, in each episode this season, Alak has been proven to be like less of the Castithan male that he should be, and I want to see him struggle with that through the season. I think it's not going to end in this episode. But we do learn early on in the episode, mind you, that Christy is with child.
And how do we discover that?
Well, let me do it. Did that sniff come through?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine? I mean, can they sense everything that well, or is it just pregnancy hormones?
The dogs of space. Can they sniff out cancer too? I mean, seriously.
They have a whole side business just in sniffing things, it seems. But so that baby's out of the bag because now everyone knows Christy's pregnant, because clearly privacy is just not a thing in a Castithan household. There's just no way you're going to be able to keep a secret, much less a secret like that. And surprisingly enough, Rafe was incredibly happy. And we know this because he grimaced through that entire scene.
I was going to say, that was probably the best moment of that episode for me, was seeing him exceptionally happy that he was going to have a grandbaby. And then seeing Birdie do her little skip for joy, which was fantastic. I don't think I've ever seen Liberata do that other than the time they were table dancing at the Need Want.
I know. Can we get a musical just starring Birdie? I think someone on Twitter, I think it was Pantrocious, said, oh, we need a Bye Bye Birdie musical. In addition to the one.
No,
it's a pun.
Yeah. Immediate sadness following that happiness. Oh man. I was like, no, not Birdie, not after she was so happy. I mean, what the heck? Talk about dark. That wasn't dark. That was beyond dark. That was just mean.
No one can drink to that. I mean, it's
that
just
was
soul crushing. So yes, Irisa did go on another Holy Ghost bender and completely slaughter Birdie in an alleyway. At least she died on a happy note. She died knowing that Christy was pregnant.
I don't think anybody can really die on a happy note, because death is death. But now at least we know why we never get to see Irisa actually kill anybody, just the aftermath.
Well, yeah, because I assume she kills everyone with her tentacles?
Well, we didn't actually see any tentacles until the middle of this episode, actually.
Right, because I thought for a minute she did it with, her obvious weapon, knives, but apparently Urzu doesn't work that way.
And yet there's still blood. Tentacles go in, through the mouth, and there's blood on her hands. What?
You would think they would find out a way, divine intervention, they would find a way to make this cleaner so that you wouldn't immediately be led to kind of the person who actually did the killing, but we'll get to. After
Birdie's death, we move on to Mayor Pottinger, who's everybody's favorite maniacal E-Rap guy right now.
Yes.
Using Doc Ewell's decapitated finger.
That was so cool.
I was so sad. I was wrong.
No, you were right.
Yes, it's an electronic lock, but I thought, who would use their pinky to lock a safe?
Oh, yeah, that's kind of unfortunate and a little strange, but...
Apparently smart people do.
Apparently. How would Pottinger know that, of course she used her pinky finger? Like, why didn't he take all of her fingers?
Well, maybe indigenes have the same fingerprint in all digits.
Oh, so I guess he took the one probably that would be easiest to reattach, since he knew he was going to, give it back, essentially. I don't even know if he kept it on ice. It doesn't look like he kept that finger on ice at all.
But you have to give props to the prop department. No pun actually intended there, but all the details in the skin for the indigenes is amazing. At first I thought it was just a pattern, It looked kind of scaly, and it was in geometric shapes, and it had some that were traced in an outline and some that were filled. But you look at Doc Ewell now in prison, and I don't know if half of that's the dirt and mud that's getting dried on her, or if that's the way her skin is becoming, like she's drying out.
Yeah, I worried about her. I thought it was because she could no longer use her Neutrogena at night. But I think you're onto something there. I'm a little worried about her. She is looking a little dried out. So thank goodness that Pottinger used her decapitated pinky to open the safe, pulled out, all of her old college notes, and then went to her and said, here's your finger back. I'm going to give you probation. That whole thing, I think he knows he needs her to decipher those notes because Pottinger failed chemistry when he was in college, and he doesn't actually know what they mean. And so he needs her to decipher those notes.
But he knows enough. He can read enough to know what it is that she was working on. And that has him really frothing at the mouth. You saw how excited he got. So I want to know what it is he's working on, or what she was working on. I have a lot of questions about that.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of questions. And just so, chat room, I'm spying on you basically and reading everything you're writing. And I will actually read these comments out during the air as we go along. Especially since we said decapitated and clearly Doc Ewell was dismembered. Thank you, chat room, for pointing that out. We took it one step further. We out Kevin Murphy on that one.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Doc Ewell still has her head, just to be clear. She just lost the little one on her right hand.
Pinky. And she takes Datak with her out of prison, which I thought was an interesting choice. But we'll discuss that.
Yes, we will have to discuss that in depth later. And then after the whole prison, the Camp Reverie, which, by the way, I have to bring up, they've mentioned before that Camp Reverie did not need to be guarded because it was out in the middle of the wilderness. Cougar Nikki mentioned it. Mm-hmm. That nobody leaves it because it's Hellbug territory. You try to escape and you end up dead. So why is this place so heavily guarded and nobody even attempts to escape, really? Except for Datak, who can't stand to be closed up like a caged animal.
Clearly. But it's only 6 miles from Defiance. It's not that far.
Tame a giant Hellbug and ride it home.
I guess Datak could just salivate at the mouth like he did during that fence scene in the middle of the episode, and he would scare any Hellbug away. And maybe he can smell them. Someone mentioned Hellbug pheromones, Connor, I think, in the chat room. Maybe Datak can smell them from a mile away, and he can, get them out of there.
So, speaking of the prison scenes, let's go back and discuss Datak frothing at the mouth.
Mad Dog Datak.
Mad Dog Datak. This time in vehement anger. He was not at all as excited as Pottinger was, because Alak came and visited him and delivered some interesting news. Now, it wasn't necessarily news so much as Alak wishing to quit the family business, and then slightly indicating that maybe his mother was ruling the roost.
Yeah. Do you think he did that intentionally? And chat room, do you think that Alak kind of let that slide on purpose? I'm not sure. I don't think he would on purpose. I think he's just talking.
Honestly, as much, and forgive my language, as much crap as his mother gives him, he is more attached to his mother than he is to his father. And he loves her dearly.
Attached at the lips.
We saw how concerned he was when her life was at risk, and he did do what she bid and perform a sloppy assassination. I think she's got him under her thumb pretty well, but not so much Daddy. So I think that was an accidental slip, because he is bumbling around quite a bit right now.
Yeah, and imagine going to tell your father that, hey, I'm going to be a dad, and the only thing your dad is concerned about is, work and his pride and his honor. I almost wonder, we'll get into this, but I wonder where in the end Alak's loyalties are actually going to lie. If I were him, I would be really resentful of Datak just based on that response.
And I've said this last episode, I think that if we were voting for MVP of the season, it would have to go to Alak because of his growth and how well Jesse is doing with the character.
Mm-hmm.
But I can totally see at the very end of the season, both Stama and Datak getting something resembling what's coming to them, and Alak coming out on top because he manipulated the situation.
That I could see happening. I hope so. I hope this doesn't go like the way of Kramer versus Kramer, and it just, it keeps escalating and getting sad. I do hope someone comes out on top. But yes, Connor just says in the chat room, Alak seems to be most loyal to Christy and her best interests, at least at the moment. And I agree. He's really trying. I mean, yes, he made out with a prostitute, but he stopped.
Well, we know he's going to go a little further with a prostitute, and we don't know if he's going to stop there. Mm-hmm. And now that he's got the pressures of fatherhood at such an early age, I'm sure he's scared.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Most of us who end up going into fatherhood at an early age don't mess up like this. Well, I guess it would be a fair number out there. So
we'll do a focus group eventually. We'll get around to it. Just give us time.
What else have we learned?
They're out of prison. They're doing the thing. But, oh my gosh. Okay, so yes, there is a horrible, horrible bath scene, and we're going to talk about that later because Datak clearly is out of jail, and he's really angry. But what we also learn is that Irisa is also really tired of being used as a weapon of death, which I think anyone would be exhausted by it after a while. Maybe the first time it's kind of cool, but then it kind of loses its luster. She finds Sukar. Someone explained to me how she came across Sukar randomly. Was this a hallucination, or did she actually find him?
I'm pretty sure she actually found him, and he mentioned it, that the tribe kind of left him. So chances are she came to where he would have been anyways, and the tribe was gone, so she already knew where he would be. Okay. But it was good seeing him again, and I was really excited because
he didn't have any feathers. You could see a nude from the waist up.
Besides the fact that he's built like a tank and looks really good, he was a favorite of a lot of us. The fans love him. Sukar is awesome, and he died twice in season 1. And the cast kept saying that the second time he died, they had meant to keep him dead. But since everybody loved him so much, they were going to write him into season 2. And he's there. And then what happens? They kill him.
So you were really traumatized by this killing, then.
I lost my shit. I blew my top. I was so mad. Because I watched it on Sci-Fi Now, so I had to pause it, walked away, and I had to breathe a little bit and convince myself to finish the episode because, hey, you never know what's going to happen. And boy, am I glad I did.
Exactly. You could go to sleep happy. And Lonely knew that. I'm sure you may have not been, this isn't in regard to Sukar's death in particular, but she says in the chat room, I actually yelled at a little girl, and I can totally see being traumatized by this episode and just yelling at everyone in my life. So that was pretty funny. But yes, it's a good thing you stuck around because we have a vision.
Before you go on, here's the clarification. She goes on to say the little girl was Katie.
Oh no.
She yelled at Irzu.
Don't you know not to yell at Irzu? She gets really mad. But I'm sure Katie can handle it. I mean, she's a big girl now. She's on Twitter. She's putting herself out there. It's bound to happen. But there was no reason to yell at her because apparently Urzu protects all life, which is what we learned in this super important vision where Irisa all of a sudden morphs into like a Cylon and is everywhere. What was up with that?
Okay, that whole vision is so open to speculation, it's crazy. Honestly, I can't get my thoughts straight on it. Was that Irisa? Was that not Irisa? Was that Arisa's mother or some descendant of hers? And we'll go through those questions a little bit, but it's what? That was so out of left field. And you know what? The show needed it because we don't know anything. We know why they came down here, but we don't know anything from that time to now and why the Kaziri, the ship, is in Defiance and why it's so important and why Irisa was pulled into this. That story is finally progressing. And I feel like we were taking little baby steps to it, and finally this is a big jump.
Yes, now we know the questions. It's almost like we now know what we don't know. So at least we know the questions to ask. And kudos to Allison Miller, who wrote this episode. This was a really intricate episode to write, and she, hit it out of the, a sports analogy. She hit it out of the park, and it was fantastic. You summed it up well. At the end of the episode, if you're going, what? Then it was successful.
That's pretty much the big revelation of the episode. But the other big revelation that we had was the fact that these people were not dying. That Irzu, as she said, was protecting people. And these people were coming back. And then, lo and behold, Birdie walks out of the forest.
Yeah, so that's a big revelation. I know we're going to talk about this. I'll save all of my WTFs for when we get to it in the show, because there was a lot I know going on with the Tars in this episode, and a lot of trauma going on with them, a lot of domestic violence. So what do you think about that? What do you think about Datak?
If we're going to go into the Tar family, I have to say Datak has done... He's only been in 3 scenes this episode. When he talked to Alak, when he talked to Doc Ewell to get out of prison, and then at the very end, our episode finale. And 2 out of 3 of those scenes were very powerful.
I would say all 3 of them.
Well...
Okay, 2 were very violently powerful. You're right.
Is this Datak's baptism through fire? Is this going to be the birth of the bigger, badder, beastly, batty daddy Datak?
So we have to call him Batty Daddy Datak from now on. I think that's what he's going to have all the prostitutes at the Need Want call him.
Batty Daddy Datak?
Yeah.
Going back to season 1, he's thrown into prison because, yes, he can't control his rage, but did he have every right to do what he did? I wouldn't say as far as going to the extent of murder, but he was angry. He was promised things. They were taken away from him immediately after his victory. Anybody would have done what he did, not just him.
You mean the first time, killing basically the person who wanted to have a coup and take your job from you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. It may not have been the wisest way of going about it, but I can see his motivation behind that.
Yeah, but I mean, if you put this up to 50 people, 25 of them would probably resort to murder, you know?
Yeah, especially on New Earth. Yeah, so he lost that. He's in prison, emasculated again. And so I think in the back of his mind, he definitely knows Stama's up to something. He just needed that extra little nudge to confirm it for him, and Alak gave him that.
Do you really want to call it demasculation in prison? I mean, Pottinger really put him in his place.
Yeah, and he was in a straitjacket, which now is just so symbolic. You know, he couldn't actually do anything to get his honor back, and now that he's out of it, essentially let out of prison and his restraints, he's going 8-stack on everyone. But you know, Datak and Stama don't have the best communication. I mean, everyone knows in a marriage you have to communicate, and they're not really good at that, per se.
That's what the baths are for. It's therapeutic. Apparently it's not working very well and they need a doctor involved. Oh, that's what Ewell's working for.
Imagine it. Datak's this upset, and he doesn't know the half of what Stama has actually been up to. He doesn't know that the Tar family has now lost the Adreno business. I'm pretty sure Datak probably had some Adreno business selling going on when he was out of prison. And he doesn't know, this is a game tie-in, but he doesn't know that Stama was out in San Francisco, you know, doing attending a gay pride parade and, you know, flaunting her wares about San Fran. He doesn't even know the half of what she's been up to.
And he probably never really will.
You think Stama will cover it up and kind of cower, do the little things she does?
She's good at getting out of bad situations. Mm-hmm. And we know this. At least within her time here on New Earth. Because while she was at home, she was of a higher class. We don't know what kind of things that she got into or how hard it was for her in that cast, besides the fact that they treat women pretty much like servants up there. So
Right.
I see her getting herself out of the situation. Now, you may be right. You mentioned that she's probably going to play nice for the next few episodes. But in the end of that, she's going to be doing something behind her back. She has an escape plan.
Yeah, last time her escape plan, I mean, there's really no one for her to kill this time, because the last time she got out of a mess, it was just solved with a simple little murder. I don't know how she's going to get out of this one. So you guys are going in the opposite direction of what I was thinking. I was thinking that in that bath scene, Datak was in such a rage, but something made him stop. You know, what made him not kill Stama? Because he clearly could have done that, and then he decided not to. So at some point during the season, maybe he'll try to get his honor back for the next couple of episodes. But at some point, I think he's going to have to realize that that family may work better as a partnership. I don't know. I just feel like at some point, maybe he's not going to go mad dog Datak, because that's what we all expect him to do.
You know, honestly, once feral, always feral. To me,
Yeah.
I think he's just going to be an animal.
He will not be neutered anytime soon. But the chat room agrees with you. Carly agrees with you. I think some other people in there agree that he's going to really try hard to get his honor back and his manhood taken care of, because he hasn't had that taken care of in a while. So Datak's next step is going to be heading straight to the need want.
There's no fixing Datak.
No.
Speaking of the Tar family, let's move on to the younger head of household, Alak, and how much shit he's getting from everybody.
I mean, poor Alak. I've never felt more sorry for him, but at the same time, I completely respect the way Jesse Rath is playing this character. He's doing an amazing job.
He is so conflicted, that boy. I mean, he's trying to do what is expected of him by the Cassie tradition, what is expected of him by his mother, who's trying to break Cassie tradition, trying to uphold what his father has created and doesn't really want to, is struggling with the fact that he is married to a human and loves her, but that is really not the Cassie way, and he's forging new traditions. But he doesn't know what he's doing, and he doesn't have guidance, and he's bumbling along. He practically slept with a porter on the arch, and they like it rough, so no telling if either one's going to fall out of the damn arch.
Like a Sukar, yeah.
We know he's probably going to slip up later, or we don't know how far that's going to go, but something is going to put him in that situation. You know how commercials are. They always tease and taunt. But yeah, he's being put into places that he is just out of his depth. When he found out that Christy was pregnant, his mother found out first. He should have known. He pecked her on the cheek first.
You hit the nail on the head, because how does your mother-in-law sniff out your wife before you do? I mean, are they not sleeping together? Is he spending so much time on his business that he's really not spending a lot of time with Christy? Alec is so Michael Corleone in especially this last episode. I wonder if he's going to keep traversing that path to maybe one day he will overcome Datak, like you said, and maybe even Stama. I don't think so, but maybe one day.
Leave it to a dad to find any excuse to threaten the boyfriend or husband coming into the family.
I almost wish he would have done that whole threatening cigar scene while still wearing Birdie's old apron. That would have just made it even better if he had done that.
There's something to be said about the parenting of this show, in particular this episode. Datak did not handle his son's denial of his future well at all. He went crazy. His arm was out of the cage trying to claw at people, He was angry. Rafe is thrilled that his daughter is pregnant. And Birdie is like family to him, but he wasn't concerned with her coming back until the very next day, even though she said she was going to be right over.
Right.
But how long does it take to change a tire? Honestly.
Yeah, and what tire is she? I think that was an excuse for her to just get out of the Macaulay household, but that's just me. But you're striking a parallel, because sometimes Rafe didn't always deal with his children in the best way possible. It took him a while to get used to the idea of Christy and Alak in the first place.
Well, he lied to all of them about his wife, their mother. One of them runs off. The other one marries an alien whom, we know he's a xenophobe.
Right. Parenting fail.
Nolan's trying way too hard.
Yeah, and not doing enough, Nolan.
And then reading her diary, because that's going to give him a hint as to where she's currently at? No, I don't think so. It's just the parenting in this show is terrible. So no wonder anybody actually survives out there.
Nolan actually, one of my favorite scenes was when Nolan talked to Amanda and he's like, am I a bad father? And someone on Twitter pointed out, well, gee, I don't know, Nolan, you are at the brothel when maybe you should be looking for your child. But I don't know if you're a bad father.
Well, didn't she answer with yes?
Yeah, which, I mean, my God, Amanda's after my own heart. I mean, she's just so honest. Her and that Adreno, I tell you can't beat those two together.
Yeah, so I think this episode was actually really about parenting, and nobody just wanted to call that out.
Mm-hmm.
So Rafe pretty much threatens Alak with his life, saying, you know what, get out of the business now, or you're not worthy for my daughter, and we'll do more than just break your bones.
That's
Awesome.
great. I think, in a way, Alak has to respect Rafe more than his own father. Alak likes straight talk. I mean, I think he's found it an efficient way to get business done, and I think he may be deathly afraid of Rafe, who wouldn't be, but in some way he knows that Rafe's just looking out for his family. And Datak maybe not so much his entire family.
Right.
Because he did try to kill them.
At the end.
Yeah, that's true. At the end.
Alak's supposed record business is doing pretty well. Tar Tracks.
Right, I don't believe that for a second. Well, I mean, no,
So-
actually, maybe, with the demise of digital, we are going back to vinyl. I can believe it.
But still, I mean, if his record business is doing somewhat well, he's got a fallback. He can support his family, be honorable and do it. Now that Daddy's out of prison, that's going to be hard for him to break away because, Datak is strong with tradition and he's trying to give a legacy to his son. Whether or not he's willing to let go of that legacy is another matter. But let's go ahead and talk about that bath scene. The one that everybody's been talking about, the one that shocked everybody, was nearly as bad as a red wedding.
You're right. You think it was?
Nearly. I mean, it was shocking, it was surprising, it was awesome.
Yeah, and what's so interesting about this scene, and maybe it's a credit to the direction of the episode and the acting in that scene, because the acting from both Jamie Murray, Tony, and Jesse, they were just, I felt for all of them. But the scene itself, we kind of knew something like, I thought that something was going to be coming. We all knew Stama was going to be drowned in a bath at some point because it was in some of the previews. So I kind of knew it was coming, but just the rawness of how they did it and the leading up to it, it took it to the next level. And generally, I'm not a fan of the music montages. I'm not really into that. But I actually felt like this scene could have been more powerful if there was not, one of my favorite bands playing in the background.
That's more personal memory triggers for you.
But do you think, what if you had just heard the sounds of someone drowning in a tub? Wouldn't that have been insanely, weird and grotesque?
Honestly, I think that without the sound, it's more powerful. And I think that's the direction that most people tend to go with scenes like this, other than the fact that they also slow down the scene, which I don't think they did this time. They usually do this in slow motion.
Yeah, that's true.
And maybe that would have made it a little more powerful. But it was pretty heavy stuff. And I'll explain why I loved the scene so much in our favorites section, because I've got stuff to say about that. But as far as the scene itself and what it lends to the show, it says a lot of what's to come for the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm. It sets it up.
Alak is going to be fighting Datak the whole way. Stama is going to be doing the best to recover and keep herself from drowning. And Datak is going to physically put himself back in power. It's very much a foreshadowing.
You could have an entire show just based upon this one family. There's so much going on in there.
There's so much symbolism in just the setup of the scene itself. I mean, when Datak walks up to the house, his shadow is growing larger and larger. Mm-hmm. Like he's coming back into himself, like he's going to grow in power. He walks into this pristine house, and as he takes steps towards the bath, he is shedding his filth.
Yeah.
And then he takes that one dirty, dingy step into the calm, placid waters of the family bath. And then immediately causes turbulence and violence. I mean, it is a very symbolic and powerful scene. Yeah,
it's the first time we've actually seen anything remotely dirty or anything like that even step foot in the Tar household. The only thing I've even seen in that household wearing dark colors is Kenya when she came to visit Stama that one time, and we saw how that worked out. Darkness is soon to come.
And then I have to say that Tony Curran did a really good job with the face, with his reactions when he was just peeking around the corner of the sheets. He was so creepy. You couldn't tell what was coming. You couldn't tell what mood he was in. He had both of this calm, serene, and then this wild maniac look in his eye.
He did.
Crazy stuff. It was a great scene. But let's talk about Irzu.
Let's get all our questions out, because I have so many questions. Urzu's caused such a cluster chup in my mind that I can't even sleep at night. So yes.
She's getting uncontrollable and really demanding. We don't know what her endgame is, and Irisa really can't fight it, as we've learned this episode. That was the whole point. She cannot fight it. She's broken through handcuffs. She let Irisa shoot herself. Irisa didn't fight her to the point where I can do this, and then pull the trigger. No. Irzu gave her the little bit of willpower to lift that weapon and pull that trigger, and did it so it was missed. She's completely in control.
Missed her...
Her brain.
Yeah, she missed her brain. Yeah, she definitely decimated her jaw.
Yes.
See, that's interesting because that means there's some level of free will that people have, but at the same time, there is still something that's in greater control of your actions and the way that you go about things. That whole scene was just creepy. It was creepy watching her put Irisa back together and heal her. I mean, that even hurt. And symbolically, that was pretty interesting. The fact that watching her be healed was just a horrible experience too, because you could tell Irisa was not going to be the same person.
Well, and then it just makes you question what these two keys are, what they really are, these tentacles.
You think that those are part of the keys, the actual mechanism that's inside her that's coming out.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that the tentacles were always there. Maybe not visually because they're thin and long, but when you saw the keys, the two parts, the gold and the silver halves, they were knots. They were intricate knots. That could have just been coiled up tentacles or tendrils or whatever you want to call them. Mm-hmm. They were always there. So they're in her body. What they're doing, I don't know. How she's leaving some of them in other people's bodies, I don't know. There's a lot of mystery there. But it's crazy. Yeah, the way that her face was knit back up.
Yeah, really quickly. So you pointed out a few things, Ben, that we do know or think that we know about Irisa and how Urzu's controlling her.
Yeah, so basically what we've learned is Irisa is attacking and seemingly killing people at the will of Irzu. That Irzu doesn't even need Irisa to be conscious to do the devil's deeds. Irisa hates what she's becoming, and we see that because she's fighting him. And following the path of Irzu is one paved in bodies. And of course then we learn that they're not really dying. And there's a reason why Irisa's being called the devouring mother. Although I don't know if she's actually devouring or giving life.
Or both. I mean, there are so many questions that come from this because the fact that they come alive. Last episode we asked, does Urzu have a need to feed? Is she feeding off on these bodies? And that was before we actually knew that any of them were being resurrected.
It's kind of disgusting that she's spitting these and regurgitating these tendrils into people's mouths.
It's definitely a public health hazard. That is not healthy behavior.
This is how we spread alien disease, people, okay? And then while Irzu is off doing, Irzu knows what with Irisa's body, Irisa is treated to a glimpse of the past, and that brings up further questions.
That flashback was so needed in the show. I'm so glad they put it in there, just because it let you take things to the next level. And Connor has a good question. Do you think that the people who are infected or who get those tentacles, are they also receiving visions from Urzu? Are they hallucinating, in their own way? Because it's not like Urzu's just appearing. Those are hallucinations, I think. It's not like Urzu's really right there.
Honestly, it's a good question. But in my mind, they wouldn't be. They are getting a part of Irzu. Irisa
because they don't have the key inside them, per se.
Irisa is the devouring mother. She is going to be the leader of this cult. And we've seen in the trailers where she's standing on the hill with people following her, one of those being Sukar, and now we know why. These are probably all the people she's infected.
Why does then she have to devour Sukar again? Does he just need reminding that he's part of Urzu's army?
Here's my question. Why is it that Sukar has to die 3 times and come back to life 3 times?
Yeah, chat room, help us out, because is that just a narrative kind of thing where I can't believe that it would be something like a narrative thing where they thought, Sukar, he's a fan favorite, we have to bring him back. No, I don't think Defiance works like that. So they have to have a reason for killing Sukar off. Maybe everyone has literally 9 lives.
We need to kill somebody off this episode. Oh, we still have Sukar. Let's go ahead and do that. Yeah. Oh, gosh.
We can bring him right back. It's fine.
So let's talk about the vision. Is it a vision? Is it fantasy? Is it reality? Past, present, future? I mean, it seems like it's past because it takes place on the Kaziri, which we learn is the terraforming ship that was sent to come terraform Earth before the actual Votanus Collective came to Earth to occupy.
Right, 3,000 years ago, basically.
Well, 3,000 years before the first ships.
Right.
The question is are these visions or are these lies?
Well, that feeds right into my question because I actually want to know, because this is all about this so-called God, right? And who knows if, people believe in Urzu, they worship Urzu, but who's to say that Urzu or this God actually exists? What if Irisa is the God or is this thing that no one can figure out, and this is just her way? She's applying all of this to Urzu when in fact maybe she's either a part of Urzu's godlike army or like the Athena to Urzu's Zeus or something, or she actually is Urzu.
So you're thinking that little Irisa, whom we've called Urzu, is actually just a product of Irisa's mind, and that Irisa is actually Irzu.
Yes, definitely. Well, I think that's an option. No matter what, there's a reason, and maybe there is no Urzu. I mean, these things were put into Irisa, so they're basically a machine that connects to another machine, because the key was put into Irisa when she was a child, at the same age that Urzu is.
That goes back to something we talked about a couple episodes ago, that maybe that the Kaziri is controlling Irisa by being a machine, an entity all on its own, and it's drawing information from Irisa's mind. So if Irzu is her god, and she's familiar with that, that's who they're going to draw upon. So you're right.
Yeah, and I think the notion of God in this regard is really a machine. So I think this is, in the end, this is all about technology, because these are all about parts and technology kind of working together. And, the Votans are really advanced. I think instead of God, it's almost like this is just a machine that is acting like a god.
It sounds like we're pulling another Battlestar Galactica here.
Yeah, well, clearly they've had to have seen the show, so maybe they will not go that route. Hopefully.
So, and then the last question I have, does the vision really change anything? It was in the past, it happened in the past. It may change Irisa's outlook, but everything that happened in the vision has already happened. Unless there's some kind of information that we get that says we haven't finished our mission from 3,000 years ago, and it's up to Irisa to finish it. I mean, that'd be kind of silly, but,
Oh, no, that's a really good question. A good kind of philosophical outlook question, too, because does it matter why you are where you are, or does it mostly matter if you just see where you are and go forward with things? So I don't know. Does it matter or not? Maybe it matters to Irisa because she wants to know why this is happening to her, but it's not really going to change what's going to happen.
That's assuming that who she sees is Irisa. If this is Irisa talking to whoever that hunky space junk is, what were they talking about? Who are they? Why do they need to hijack the ship?
Right. Well, they don't want to decimate whatever life is on this planet. That's how it came off.
But, I mean, is the ship like on some kind of autopilot and is going to go and terraform automatically, or is somebody actually piloting it because they're awake?
Yeah, that's a good question. Who was driving the ship and who are they seizing it from? Yeah, that's a good question.
It's all very interesting, and I cannot wait to find out what Defiance is going to do with the next few episodes. Now, favorite scenes, dislikes, anything like that?
So we haven't had a chance to talk about this yet because Amanda's scenes in this episode, they were absolutely brilliant. They didn't actually fuel the narrative in any regard in this episode per se, but the way that the scenes that she was in where she recalled how Kenya used to run off and just her adreno-fueled kind of rage, I just thought those were so cool. And I really liked seeing how it was nice seeing her beat someone up, but she played it really well. I mean, she was having the shakes in that last scene. She is such an addict right now, and I just wonder how that's going to affect her decision-making in the future, because it's unpredictable.
The problem with that whole thing, though, was the fact that she had just taken some, and she's acting like she's going through withdrawals, not that she's high.
I watched this scene many a time because Amanda was just tonguing the heck out of those Adreno Pop Rocks, and she was trying to get the last one that I don't think she had enough to give her a full high, and I don't think she's had enough for a while because Stama stopped selling a week ago, and we all know that Amanda goes through her stash like nobody's business. So I think maybe she was on the verge of withdrawals, and then
kind of tried to stave it off.
Yeah, it had a weird effect because from what I've read, Adreno has, you never know, its effects are really unpredictable. So it's like the Quaaludes of New Earth, basically. At one point, you could, go off and beat someone, to death, and then another way it could be like an opioid. So you never know how it's going to react with you. But I like that scene a lot.
And then you have you've mentioned your dislike, your terrible scene.
I said that earlier, the Portishead, and I still stand by the fact that it may have been even more powerful if you had the sound. I'm just going to say that.
Or if it was instrumental.
Yeah, if it was instrumental, that would have been kind of cool. Yeah, I think that would have been kind of cool. But you have, clearly, you said this, a bath scene that always has to end up in the favorites in some regard, right?
Every episode of Defiance Reporter, there is always a bath scene as a favorite, yes. But, I've mentioned the symbolism and the foreshadowing that this scene is really pushing. And, honestly, this is one of the bigger examples of foreshadowing and symbolism in this show that you can probably find since season 1. So I thought the scene was very powerful. And then, of course, I mentioned before I nearly lost my shit when Sukar was next on the hit list. I couldn't stand it. That was his third death. I thought we were past this, but apparently not, and I was quite relieved to see him return. Though I wonder as what.
Who knows what he is now? I mean, he's died how many times maybe, is this his first time, though, dying at the hand of tentacles? So maybe now he's actually a full person of the army, or he's, whatever the other tentacle people are.
Well, first he died of a shard in his neck. Then he died of Nolan shooting him off the arch. And now Irisa. Man, you can't get past Nolan and Irisa. That family is just whack.
Yeah, it's almost like Sukar is kept around to be Arisa's kryptonite, or the one link that keeps telling Irisa, no, Urzu's good. Like, you should be okay with this. And he always tells her that. And it's like Carrie's mother in the movie Carrie, like he's just super religious.
If you think about it that way, look at every single religious movie you can think of that deals with possession and horror and vampires and, no, God is great. And then everybody's like, no. Mm-mm. So, I mean, it's typical.
Yeah, that's true.
And then my last favorite scene, high school. That's all.
with Pottinger and Nolan?
Yes, that was fantastic.
Connor brought up a point in that the mayor expresses to Nolan that he fancies Amanda. So he's like, kind of back off my woman. I just want you to know that. And it's just so stupid. Why would he do that? What's his end game there? Or is he really just that inept that he does not know how to run game?
2 different classes. One's a cowboy. The other one's, I don't know.
From Downton Abbey, circa, turn of the century. We should call him Mayor Pottinger because he's just not. Oh my God!
You're only saying that because he uses lotion.
Yeah, and what does he use that lotion for if he's not actually, getting laid? I have a few ideas, but
Yeah, but you realize he's the only one in Defiance who needs lotion.
He needs to give Doc Yule some of that. That's how he'll get her to do whatever he wants her to do. Is just offer to lotion that dry Indogene skin.
And then Carly makes a good point in the chat room. Yes. 2 dudes are fighting over a woman. It happens a lot, and it's probably not going to stop happening until the end of time. It just happens, and we're trying very hard to break away from that.
Yeah.
But it's not.
She brings up, I put this somewhere. I'll just go ahead and say it and then be done with it. I'm actually glad that the Nolanda scenes, or the Nolan Amanda scenes, they take place very quickly. It's like just a couple of, you don't waste too much screen time showing the whole Nolan and Amanda sex scenes. And I kind of wanted to stay that way because Amanda has way too much going on in her life for us to waste any airtime with, pursuing that relationship. We know it's happening. We're all great. Yay. Now let's go back to her dealing with her sister and the addiction. So I like the way they've been doing that and that they don't show it too much on screen. Maybe Julie and Grant don't like that, but I like that.
You're right. We know something's going to happen and we should progress and move on. Although Nolan kind of brings that whole point up in the episode itself. It's kind of like being back in high school. Why are we fighting over these girls? You just live your life and move on.
Right. Everyone has sex with everyone. Get over it, Pottinger.
So, any speculations and unanswered questions? I mean, we had quite a bit in this whole analysis of the episode, but I had one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Doc Yule at Camp Reverie. That's my biggest speculation and unanswered questions thing. She's practically got carte blanche and a free ticket out of the camp to work on something she was working on ages ago. And we don't know what it was. It could have been the notes on Irisa, but it could have been something entirely different, something that she was working on during the Pale Wars. So who knows?
I hope it's Pale War past. I really do.
I kind of do too. This is what was she planning before her arrest? Is it related to Azira, or to Irisa and the Khaziri, or is it something from the Pale Wars past?
You've just uncovered the best ship name, I think, to come out of one of these podcasts. Did you just say Irisa?
Aziri.
Aziri?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
That was just because I was bumbling around. But, honestly, why does she need Datak?
I mean, hello? That's like my biggest question. If you are a rational being... because
lost for words.
Datak's proven that he's kind of a wild card. So maybe she thinks, I don't know what Dakyul's thinking, but she is very smart. She knows that Datak has ideas about Stama. He's not really happy about it. She overheard the conversation between Datak and Alak. Maybe she thinks that in some way Datak can be useful because he's so desperate. I have no idea. Or maybe maybe they bonded in prison. Because she accepted that pain pill from him. He didn't have to give it to her, but he did.
I don't think that there's any kind of bonding with them whatsoever. They both are driven people. They both use people for their own gains.
But they're both Votans. Maybe because what's confusing about Doc as a character, and mostly intriguing, is that she's kind of been a lone ranger all this time. She kind of does her own thing. And now Pottinger wants her notes, presumably from the Pale Wars, so that he can, stockpile or do what he needs to do to prepare for this Cold War with the Botanist Collective. So where's Dakyul going to side in this?
The whole ticket to get out of jail, the ticket to get out of jail free card, was the fact that she needed an assistant, so Datak is now her assistant. Is he going to be her assistant? Pottinger's going to watch this.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to think, okay, he's useless in a lab. He's terrible as a bodyguard. He's going to go after his own interests before hers, and he's going to find a way to gain an advantage. Now, the other thing that you want to consider is maybe she just wants to get him out of prison to have a favor in her pocket from Datak. Is that still a powerful thing?
Yes, but also, Ben, did we see her negotiate Datak's release with Pottinger? Did we see her physically say words about that? Or did we just see her say to Datak, I got you out? Because what if she made a deal with Pottinger and said, spring this guy, I'll help you get him too.
Interesting. That's an angle I hadn't considered. You're very right.
It would be a very roundabout angle now that I think about it. But
okay. So maybe it's a conspiracy between Dakyul and Pottinger to get back at Datak. Maybe run his business for him or run it at a handicap.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty good.
Yeah, that completely
derailed.
Dakyul always blows my mind. So yeah, I always get derailed when I think about her. And we still have to see her attach her pinky finger. I'm hoping we get a slice of that. Ooh, bad pun. I hope we get a scene of that in the next episode.
Badly planned pun too.
Yeah, horrible. God. We talked about this briefly, but Urzu's in game. Does she need to feed, or does she just need to grow her army? So that's one of my unanswered questions that I have. And now that we have Christy being pregnant, which applause to the chat room and to you, Ben, because you all called this from a mile away and knew that Christy would become pregnant. So are we going to get that Cradle to the Grave tie-in mentioned in the show? Because there's already been a Votan human hybrid. They have to bring that up again, right?
I'm pretty sure that they will. So I'm just not sure how well they're going to tie in. Cradle to Grave was more about informing us about these types of relationships and that they're around. It's more of an introduction to the fact that it can happen. And now it's happening in the show. I don't know if it's going to tie in specifically to what was going on in that particular situation with Dark Matter and trying to wipe us out by threatening the Botanist Collective. I don't think that's going to happen. But it does tie in the fact that this is going to introduce that to the show. And that's what's happening. So Episode 3 is under our belt. Episode 4 is coming. Do you have any predictions for any future episodes?
I'm going to predict something that probably just won't happen because I know everyone in the chat room will disagree, but I think Stama is going to be really well behaved in front of Datak for the next couple of episodes. We actually won't see too much of them, especially in the next episode, but meanwhile, Alak is going to try to upstage Datak at every turn. I think he's just really, really mad at Datak, and he's over his stack, and, he's going to reluctantly return Datak's charge blade, but he's going to be mad about it. And I think that in the next episode, we're going to see Pottinger actually really rattled because I don't think he will see this ambush of his caravan coming, and he's going to lose a little bit of power, which hopefully will bring Mercado back into Defiance, and that Nolan definitely knows who's behind this attack on the convoy, and that he chooses to protect them. Or at the very least, Pottinger thinks that Nolan knows who's behind the convoy, and this sets off, some sort of spiral between the two. And you had a prediction about Tommy and Nolan.
Yeah, the predictions are pretty similar. I think that it's time to focus on other characters, on other things. Yes, a big major event's going to happen. The caravan's going to be hijacked, and Pottinger's going to be presumably kidnapped. I doubt they'll kill him so early on. So I think that they're going to focus more on Nolan and Tommy. It's going to be a Nolan-Tommy-centric pissing contest, which will probably do nothing to resolve the relationship and probably slow the nice fast pace we've been having so far for Season 2.
Mm-hmm.
Unless this theft kidnapping evolves into something very important, and I mean Kaziri-level importance. They're bringing mining equipment from the Cedars, I think it was called.
Cedars to Defiance, yeah.
And I don't know if Pottinger's bringing this mining equipment because it's got something to do with getting the Kaziri out of the mines and whatever Doc Yule's working on. In which case, then yeah, I'm very, very interested. And maybe that'll move the show along instead of this pissing match. And then finally, Niles Pottinger planned this theft and the death of most of the convoy, save for Berlin.
Oh, kind of like Jane McLean. I love how I know the actress's name. Shoot, but I am totally blanking on her E-Rep name, Group Marriage, but she planned this all in, I think, episode 5 of last season. Yes.
Exactly like that. And you know what? She's still alive and in New York, so...
Yeah, so I wouldn't put it past the E-Rep. They've done something before. I just hope this isn't one of those episodes where, they solve the case and then we never see those cool guys in the masks again, because they're really scary too. I think they should stick around for a few episodes.
The masks actually were very inventive. The red one with the spikes on it, I couldn't tell what it was until I actually sat there and looked at it. They're shotgun shells glued to a hockey mask.
Oh, wow. All I could think of was just a very creative version of a Jason mask, and you're so right. Gosh, the costume department there is really good.
Yeah.
I think all those people are actually just part of the resistance.
Hellbug's got it. Her name was Tennedy.
Yes, Tennedy. Ulfin Tennedy. Yes, thank you, Hellbugs. Yeah, maybe they're more than just raiders. Yeah.
I think definitely are. And we'll talk about this off the set, but there's a preview of what's going to happen, and you get a little hint of what's going on, and then you get to see the trailer for next week, and you kind of put two and two together, and you think this is definitely not a robbery. This is something more. But Michelle, MVP.
Oh, God, I had so many. I'm going to go with the person who was on screen probably the least, so Amanda, just because I think it's really intriguing to think that Amanda's always been so level-headed. She's always done what's smart kind of over what's right. She's always had an interest in Defiance. And to see her completely go off the rails on Adreno, and then even after she realized that she really had a problem, she still went to Pottinger's office just so that she could maintain her access to the one thing that's making her spiral out of control. And I don't...
Who called it? Who called that scene?
Yeah,
That's right.
Totally did. You're so good at predictions. Jeez. I'm just good at, noticing that they came true after the fact.
I can spot a manipulative, horny little shit from a mile away.
That's because you got game, Ben. Game recognized game.
No, I may have been a horny little shit in high school, too. Let's not let anybody know that, though. Guys, keep that a secret.
Yeah, let's not we'll edit that part out. Yeah, what's going to happen when the most level-headed person in the show all of a sudden just goes completely, she was pushing Nolan away, and not in a sexy way, but in I've got a bloody nose, get off me kind of way.
Now, I have a comment about Amanda and her outburst in the Need Want. I think her sister, Kenya, would have been so ashamed of her. That's not how Kenya would have run that business. Not at all.
We saw this in one of the first episodes with Kenya. She calmly talks people down and then maybe goes down on them to kind of... But Amanda tried to do this with the guy. She tried to say, oh, you get, free booze, free night porters, on the house, what have you. And then she just let her temper get the best of her. But you know what? That's what nerds do. Amanda doesn't have game. We know this. She tries so hard. And at the end of the day, she just, the nerdy, weird thing, which is to just completely go violent on this guy.
I just thought I'd have to mention that Kenya would have been disappointed because she does run the Need Want much better than Amanda. And Amanda's trying, but she's definitely out of her element. She looks good, but she's not working it.
She also isn't wearing her veil as much in this episode, which I don't know if they meant that to be symbolic or Julie Benz was just like, look, I can't act with this veil on my face anymore, but she's not wearing it in this episode, and I think it's because maybe she thinks she's falling into a comfort zone in this life, but that's just the drugs talking.
Even her assertions of power, like when she told Nolan in the last episode that he is going to be the lawkeeper, it suited her more when she was mayor than it does as her being a woman of the industry.
Yeah, it just goes to show what a great actress Julie Benz is. The fact that she can act so well that like she's trying to seduce someone into doing what they want her to do, but we all know she's way too nerdy and smart to actually be doing that. So it just kind of doesn't work on the face of it. So she was my MVP. I thought she played those scenes really, really well.
The fact that she's faltering and is not a perfect character makes her very intriguing. Mine, obviously, was Datak. Sorry, that one scene was very symbolic, was very powerful, and Tony Curran, played the shit out of that role.
That scene was completely silent as far as his only expression in the bath scene, that is, came from his facial expressions.
It was all facial expression. And then, while he was talking with his son, the right amount of rage coming out, and the fact that you only see half of his face, and he's still able to push that raw emotion through. He really is a phenomenal actor.
He is.
Datak gets props this episode.
He's a mad dog. And the only reason, that we didn't mention Irisa or Alak is that we actually think they have even better episodes coming, I think.
Everyone's got their great moments, and I think for this episode it was Amanda and Datak.
Off the set.
Now, whenever we watch an episode live of Defiance, the added benefit of watching it live is that you get to watch it with us and the many fans on Twitter, not to mention the actors themselves. So, full night of Defiance with a full night of snarky tweets, what can be better?
Exactly.
We got some favorite tweets that we went ahead and pulled out from that. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to tweet this week.
Yeah, we missed you. We noticed.
I didn't get to watch it live. Real life intervened. Michelle, these are some of the juicy ones that you were able to find.
Yeah, and the great thing is Defiance live tweeting has turned into such a thing, which is great. It was trending this past week that I'm really going to have to be better about favoriting every single one that immediately comes across the tweet deck, because after a while there's so many tweets that you can't even go through them. But these are just a few of the amazing ones that came through, and there are so many good ones out there.
Exactly, there's so many.
But these are just a few. But definitely, if you have time, just go through the Defiance tag. It's really entertaining. But Pantrocious, just made a Breaking Bad reference and said that Datak is the Walter White of Defiance, which I just thought was kind of a cool... we'll see if it delivers throughout the season, but it's just kind of a cool reference. He sought power, and when he acquired it, his pride was his downfall, which sounds like Datak to me.
Will he have a downfall? Or did he reach rock bottom and is going to climb his way back up now?
Or is there even a rockier bottom for him to find?
Oh, that would be scary.
Oh, it would. And Jen Russi, I alluded to this earlier, she tweeted, "Am I a bad father? I don't know, Nolan, but since you're at the brothel, why not ask your scotch or a nearby prostitute?" Which, I love it when, actual morals invade the land of Defiance, because it's just really funny. Because Nolan was really serious, when he was asking that question.
Well, Amanda came with the appropriate answer, so we're happy.
Yeah, it was great. And then SLD3 Sign, Heir to the Demon, says, Arisa's got a little bit of a Jekyll Hyde problem. And I just thought that was so astute and so understated that it was lovely.
Yeah.
And of course, there's always a few cast members tweeting, and Anna Hopkins actually was quoting Graham Greene in this tweet, but he said, "I love gang tweeting. It's better than a barbecue," which I can totally see Graham Greene saying. This gang tweeting that he speaks of just is very amusing for some reason. It reminds me of a lot of things that he probably was not trying to remind me of.
He is absolutely charming and taking to Twitter so well.
Yes.
I love seeing tweets from him.
One thing I said that Defiance was trending on Twitter, and Hellbugs, thanks Hellbugs, wah, wah, points out that it was trending locally. And so maybe that wasn't trending nationwide because, there maybe are people that care about other things other than Defiance. But, next time we'll have it trending nationally for sure. Hellbugs always has the facts. She always brings me back to the facts, and I appreciate that. Thanks, Jules.
Kelly McCormick.
This was so funny. Kelly McCormack, who plays a Cassethan handmaiden, says, "Choose life, Irisa. There are so many Star Wars movies coming out." Which it spoke to my inner nerd.
In 2046?
I mean, there probably still are. I think George Lucas is going to freeze himself so that he can continue to make movies.
Yes, because we need more George Lucas Star Wars. No, thank you.
Yeah.
We got Defiance. Who needs Star Wars? Oh, I'm going to get killed tonight, aren't I? Reviews across the web. We have 3 particular reviews that we picked up. One of them is IGN's Jesse Shadeen, who happened to have his review out, I believe, that same evening.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, this is probably going to be his last review until they have a finale, so I really wanted to pull that up. He mentions 2 things that I just want to pinpoint. He says the big hurdle with Defiance's second season so far has been accepting that while the lives of the main players might have shifted, the overall tone and direction of the series hasn't changed as much as season 1 finale might have suggested. And it's definitely frustrating at times to see so little focus on the tension between the Earth Republic and the ordinary citizens of Defiance. He's got a very valid point there. So we don't see a lot of conflict with the people living in Defiance and Earth Republic, like we saw in season 1 with the shaming ritual in the streets and how people were dealing with that. We don't get enough of that in Defiance this season, which I can understand. There's a lot of focus on people right. We know. And something else he mentions is, as much as I feel like the show is wasting good storytelling potential in terms of the tension between Defiance and the E-Rep, there's plenty of smaller character drama to keep this show moving. The Tar family was as fascinating as ever in this episode, and as Irisa and Amanda struggle with their personal demons, the show is making better use of its full cast than it did in season 1. If we've learned anything this week, it's that we don't always need Nolan around to play the Han Solo role.
Agreed. I agree with that. That statement is incredibly accurate.
Exactly. Den of Geeks' Michael R. went ahead, posted his weekly review. Den of Geek has been a longtime favorite of ours, and they're always pushing out reviews of their episodes. Michelle, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so he says, the show sneaks in other tantalizing details too, like Irisa chatting casually with Berlin about Tommy, and Stama blithely discussing Kenya, whom she killed at the end of last season, with Amanda. And he says, I'm also enjoying the music this season, which has featured contextual and sometimes Votan lyrics with familiar tunes and musical genres. So accurate. Those are the little touches that make Defiance so fun to watch, and the musical touches are really great.
And so creepy.
They did that a couple times in this episode. It was really cool. There was like a Votan recording of Heather's musical number from Kevin Murphy's, Heather's musical, I think, was in this episode.
It was. And Kevin Murphy was so excited.
Yeah. It was such like a little nerd thing. And then when Katie Douglas sang the song to Irisa that made its first appearance, and I think the Lost Ones minisode episodes, those are just fun things.
Or what about Irzu singing to Irisa?
Yes, those little things. I just talk about enriching a world. That's great. And then the character development, even with quick 30-second scenes, that scene with Irisa and Berlin, we didn't talk about it, but it was really, really great and funny in a way. And they're really good at just throwing those things in, which means you really do have to watch Defiance starting from season 1. So I really do hope that if we are getting new viewers, they really go back and catch up. And then he says this episode had just the right touch for each character and didn't burden us with a crime of the week, much to its credit. If Defiance stays on this path, the show will win big points with me and many fans of serial sci-fi. Also accurate, because lately the crime of the week is weaving itself into the larger narrative. So technically the crime of the week this week was Birdie's unfortunate passing in an alleyway.
She didn't really pass. And then there was Sukar, and he didn't really pass either. So there was no crime of the week this week. Just a missing girl and some bloody gloves.
I think that's awesome. Good track record. And then Rob Bricken, you can take that review.
Yeah, IO9's Rob Bricken. A small contention with him. Every once in a while I like his reviews, and every once in a while I want to fight it with passion. He mentions one in this week's review. It says, for a show with umpteenth alien races, crazy metal tentacle gods, and psychotic albinos, I still feel like I know where Defiance is going most of the time, but I did not have this problem in last night's episode, and I am so glad that this episode was not predictable for him. Honestly, yes, there's some things that are easily predictable, but the overall direction of the show, I think, is very difficult to discern. It can go in so many directions.
Agreed.
So
I actually think that a lot of the episodes, as far as large narrative arcs go, you don't know where the characters are going to end up.
You've got a link here for the Hollywood Soapbox commentary. There's a link in the show notes if you all want to go ahead and watch this. It's a video.
It's a commentary. It's a long diatribe on why Defiance is awesome. So clearly we don't have to, talk about this with you guys because you already know why Defiance is awesome. But click on it, read it so that they know that we know that it's awesome, and then they'll keep writing about it.
Exactly. So coming up next week on Defiance, we've got Episode 4, Beasts of Burden. I have links in the show notes for the sneak peek for Episode 4 and the Episode 4 trailer. One of them, unfortunately, is on the Defiance.com site, so for those of you who are region locked, you won't be able to see that sneak peek until it gets uploaded to YouTube. The Episode 4 trailer is on YouTube, so that shouldn't be a problem. Now, some quick observations on it. We do know that mining equipment is being shipped to Defiance from the Cedars, that Pottinger is not outright killed like everyone else is, so he's probably taken hostage. We see nothing about Berlin, other than the fact that she was crouching in the back of the van. After that, we don't know. Mm-hmm. These quote-unquote bandits are not bandits at all. Tommy accuses Nolan of protecting someone from their crimes, and Datak confronts his old crew. So a lot of exciting things to see next week.
Tune in, live tweet at the sponsors. Hellbugs, that one's for you. Hellbugs
Definitely
reminds us to do that, so thank you.
News from the Bay Area.
Unfortunately, not a lot has happened this week. Last that we talked, there was an update coming on Monday. That Monday has happened, and we were introduced to the Grid Revenants. And let me tell you, if you're not playing the game, it is worth it to go to YouTube and look up a video on the Grid Revenants. They are very alien-looking creatures. They are not aliens, but they are very alien-looking creatures. They move around very creepy-like, and they hurt. Now,
they're not aliens. They're more robots or some new. Talked about this a few episodes ago, I think.
Honestly, I can't tell you what they are, but they're something that's coming out of the Silicon Valley region. So it could be something that was already here, people that are being transformed. It could be biological experiments. I don't know yet. All we know is that they're showing up. And
they have tentacles, or they do something with tentacles too, right?
Yes and no. They kind of do this attack where they stomp on the ground, put their hands in the ground, and then all of a sudden this little, what looks like a bluish see-through tentacle pops up out of the ground in several places towards you, like in a straight line towards you, and it packs a punch. And whenever they do that, they can take over non-player characters. For instance, if you're running into an emergency, pick a familiar emergency, one where you're fighting the Vulge. Usually there's 2 or 3 people that are NPCs fighting the Vulge when you show up, and you have to help them out, or you have to bring them back to life when they're downed. Whenever you're fighting the Grid and they infect one of those people, that person will turn around and start firing at you. They basically convert enemies. They created basically a cult following, let's just say.
Oh my god, it's like Urzu almost, like they're converting people into their army. That's so crazy.
There is a big parallel between the Grid and Irzu and what Irisa's doing, but I don't know how it's related or how that's going to tie in, and I'm very concerned and interested to see what's going to happen. Of course, nothing's been announced as far as new crossover content or the continuation for this yet, and we know that something's coming. This is supposed to be a little taste. And moving from that, there was a Q&A on July 3rd. And there's some information that we touched on last week, like the 10 priorities for the team, details on the new landmass and new weaponry. And we talked about it last week, but I wanted to point out that the top 10 priorities for the team, and they put it in order, was stability and lag was the first thing. PS3 and Xbox stability was the second thing. Then the Season 2 crossover content. Honestly, I had hoped that the Season 2 crossover content would have been the first thing, and the console stability, because we're on a time schedule, and I understand the game needs to be stable, but once you miss that window of opportunity, the episode airs, what happens?
Right.
I'm sure that they debate over this all the time, and they're trying to get this done as fast as they can. I know nothing of the industry. I have no experience, no qualifications, and I probably shouldn't even be giving my 2 cents in that respect. But I still feel that the Season 2 crossover content should be the top priority, and that's only because I am clamoring for more information. I love this game. I love this show, and we need more information. Going back to the Q&A, they mentioned a lot of things that we've already talked about, and I'm going to touch on some of the things that are kind of new. One of the questions asked was, what is the base health amount for players, and what is the calculation that increases health as your ego rate increases? This is just something interesting as far as the mechanics and the math go. Player base health starts at 1,263 and it maxes out at 17,303. And of course, there are perks which you put points into that can modify those numbers. But at least now you know what your start is, what your end is, and what you're working with. And those numbers where you're getting hit and you're hitting things make more sense. Another question, when an entire group joins matchmaking and a group member disconnects during the map, can the leader of the group be asked if they want to open the party or leave it just the clan members? Because it gets really annoying when somebody just pops into your group after somebody disconnects. This is likely to be updated with the private matches coming with the matchmaking update for the War Master, though not by creating a message pop-up like the person asks. It's pretty essential in an MMO that you distinguish which kind of group you want to run in. And the fact that Defiance doesn't have this yet, well, I mean, they've got their priorities and the way they think they're working, but this should have been something that was built into the matchmaking in the first place. And I'm glad it's being brought up now. I like to play with friends more than I do pickup groups, or what we call pugs. And other people like to just go to a pug, get things done, and go home. So this would really help that. Is there any chance of raising the drop rate on rare outfits? It's causing a lot of frustration, and it is true. The 7th Legion and the Gunslinger outfit drop rates are pretty high. You can get one of those outfits by just buying one of the lockboxes. You have a pretty good chance, at least. But the outfit drops from other lockboxes are pretty low, and they're taking a look at them, and they're trying to provide some in-game way to tell you if you've gotten all the outfits available from a lockbox. That way you don't have to keep buying the lockbox and hoping that there's an outfit when you're done. You've got them all. Why do enemies disappear in large encounters? And what are the steps needed to create a fix for it? Enemies disappear because you're running out of memory. If you're on PC, you can visit the proxy memory slider under the video settings and slide that all the way to the right, and that'll fix that problem, mostly. A couple more. When will matchmaking for arenas actually put you in a pug instead of just sending you in solo? That's another issue that we have. Group up first. Do it out in zone chat is their solution. They're looking into an overhaul of the matchmaking UI, so people looking for pugs or looking to avoid pugs will be able to tailor their experience. So all of these plans are in the works, which is great. But right now the solution is plan your events before you jump into your events. That seems to be a big problem that we have. We just like to jump in. What is the current loadout change duration? It is 3 seconds for those of you who keep clamoring for information on that and getting upset that it takes longer to change your loadouts. It's just not supposed to be immersion breaking, guys. Changing loadouts is great. It's an added benefit, and you don't have to keep your eyes off the action, but it was never meant to be a quick change. So I don't know why people are still upset with that. I guess there's always going to be somebody unhappy about new features that actually make things better, so c'est la vie. Quick menus for clans only show 15 members on the list. That's definitely something that they want to work on. They have other priorities about changing that so you can see, but other things come first, like that Season 2 crossover and the server stability. More dev involvement in player-hosted events in the future. There is a thread on the forums. They definitely want to be involved in player events. And this is pretty evident by the fact that I can get Trick on the show to discuss game stuff with us. Mm-hmm. They want to be involved. Check out the thread, follow the instructions. They'll come play your events. It's kind of awesome, actually. Can we have cross-platform trading, at least in global zones? This is a big no-no. It's against the publisher agreements with Microsoft, Sony, and whoever publishes for Tryon. Is it just Tryon Worlds? I think Tryon Worlds is the only publisher. So it's pretty annoying that you can't talk with people across the consoles, but you know what? Xbox has never allowed it for any other game, and they probably won't. Right now, Square Enix is trying to convince Microsoft to let them put Final Fantasy on the Xbox One and have talk with the PS4. I don't know how successful those talks are going to be, but it's just some interesting tidbits there. Recruit a friend. Will the Recruit a Friend be returning? problem is the game has turned free to play, so they're going to have to work on revamping it because it doesn't work the same way. But they do intend to have a return of the Recruit a Friend program. Just no ETA on it. And there's a couple more. I mean, you can look at the show notes and the link in the show notes for the actual thread. Those are just the more interesting ones, the ones that we hadn't discussed yet. And then the one last thing to talk about is there's changes to the loot tables for the tiered lockboxes. Many of you, as have I, have noticed that if you bought tier 2, 3, and 4 lockboxes, you get the same number of Arcforge in each one. So people have been buying tier 2 boxes just to get as much Arcforge for their money as they possibly can. This is getting changed, and they were kind enough to let us know before they changed it so that you can go and run and go buy your tier 2 boxes.
Buy them all up now while you can.
Exactly, because it's going to change. The number's going to drop for the tier 2s and the tier 3s. The tier 4s are going to stay at what they're at. And please note that change does not affect any item or outfit drop percentage. It's specific to Arcforge only, which we all know Arcforge is pretty handy stuff, and it's pretty expensive. That's pretty much it for the gaming news. Let's go ahead and talk about Doghouse Systems and Audible.
Yes, so we've got coupon codes, fun times, exciting times. Doghouse Systems, you can use the coupon code MMO Reporter at doghousesystems.com, and you can double your RAM, so definitely go do that. Doghouse Systems is great. I still always channel Chris's voice because when I listen to the podcast, he would just go on and on about how great Doghouse Systems was. So definitely go there, use that coupon code MMO Reporter, and double your RAM. And then you can also go to Audible, audibletrial.com/MMO Reporter, and you can get your first month free. So right now, you can get all of your, sci-fi fantasy going on Audible just until we maybe one day get some Defiance novels and comics on there. Maybe one day.
Yes, please. Well, novels. I don't know about comics.
It might be kind of hard. Can you imagine an audio comic? God, what a useless thing.
I have a 6-year-old son, and he asks me to help him read his comic books. I mean, he can read just fine, but he likes Daddy struggling to describe what's going on in each cell and reading them off. So yeah, Audible with comic books would be kind of interesting. So, Community Spotlight. We at Defiance Reporter feel it is the community that makes the transmedia experience great. So we are constantly on the lookout to find fans and gamers who go above and beyond to create that more immersive experience for our community. This week I wanted to shine our spotlight on an old favorite, DefianceData.com. Now, Defiance Data has pretty much been around since day one. And if you are looking for any information on the game, it is run by, and this is only his username, Itao. Itao is all over Twitter. He is always at the Tryon World's Friday streams. And this is where you can find as much information as you can on Defiance. It's the place to go. He has maintained the most extensive coverage on all Defiance game-related news, player guides, and extras like the Assets Modeler. If you missed the Friday live stream or want to make sure a question gets asked, go to his website. He's got a list of all the questions and all the answers already posted. Check it out. It's a great site. And then we got some last-minute announcements. If you missed it, this week's Arc Hunter code is Forge. Make sure to enter it at defiance.com/ego to get this week's reward, which happens to be 100 Arcforge. And obviously, if you guys play the game, you know Arcforge increases the rating or rarity of your weapons and gear. So it is actually very valuable stuff. Remember, the code expires Saturday, July 12th, so go get it in now. And then join Defiance Reporter's PC clan, Igni Farouk. No registration is required. Just look for me in-game, Corso Van Locke, and I'll just give you an invite. That pretty much does it for the show. Let's talk about contacts. Michelle, how do people who want to ask us questions give us a hoot and a holler?
Yeah, there's so many ways to talk to us. We love hearing from you all, just even outside of the live chat. So always feel free to email us at defiance@mmoreporter.com, or you can just check out the website at defiancereporter.com. You can leave a voicemail for us at 616-666-6778. I know that's totally old school, but, it kind of fits with the whole Defiance shtick. They have to go old school, too, so maybe you should leave us a voicemail. You can Facebook us at facebook.com/Defiance Reporter. You can always find us on YouTube at youtube.com/user/MMO Reporter Network. Or on Twitter, there are a few ways to at us. You can find us at twitter.com/Defiance Podcast, or the Twitter handle is at Defiance Podcast. You can find me, Michelle, at twitter.com/Women of Defiance, or you can spam me, all day at Women of Defiance. Or you can find Ben and spam him all day at twitter.com/NebsInsane. So it's been backwards and then is insane. So it's Nebsinsane. I just like explaining that name every single episode.
Did I ever tell you how I became known as Neb?
Wait, no, high school.
Yes.
Was that really?
Yes.
Oh my god, I just said that because that was like the theme of this episode of Defiance.
I had some dog tags that had my name on it, and somebody looked at my dog tags, turned their head, and said, Neb? It kind of just stuck with me. Anyway, great to have you all listening to this episode. Michelle, this was fun.
So much.
We talked a little longer than we anticipated, but it was fun.
Yeah, and you guys stuck around. Thank you, chat room. It's so much fun to have you guys giving us the facts as we go along here. We really appreciate it.
And those of you who listen to us at home, who download our show week after week, thank you. We really appreciate it. We hope you keep doing so. But most importantly, we hope to see you in game and live tweeting the show.